is going on, people, and welcome to my team of the season for the 2022/23 season. I'll be trying to do one of these every year at the end of the season going forward. I've been looking forward to doing this one, and yeah, it's always good to see who people have in their team of the season at the end of the season each year, because there's always like honourable mentions, and it's hard to decide because you've always got extra players that you feel like could just as easily be in your team as compared to other players you have in. So it's always a tricky one. I don't know if I'm going to do honourable mentions simply because I might forget a few that I'll mention some that I've got in my head, but then there'll be others that miss out that shouldn't as well. So I'm probably just going to stick to my starting 11 because the honourable mentions, I don't want to like offend people or forget people that I feel like deserve to be on that full list. So my goalkeeper is going to be a controversial one for a lot of people, but it shouldn't be because his stats back it up, his performances back it up. He's had a few little errors in the season here and there, but very few and far between. But it seems to be that people focus on this more than the good he does, and that is David De Gea. Golden Glove winner this year. The second time he's won it, I believe, since he's been at United. He's outright won it. For me, I know his distribution could be better, but I think he's improved it compared to what he used to be like. Yes, he makes the odd mistake, but I think he's very consistent, and he's by far one of the better keepers in the league. And in Europe and in the world, I think he's always been underrated. I'm not saying he's been brilliant every single season, but most seasons he has. And he's won Player of the Year for Manchester United so many times. And I think arguably again this season he could be up there. I know a lot of people give it to Casemiro or to maybe a Martinez or Varane, but I think De Gea has been just as important and vital as well. So for me, my goalkeeper has to be David De Gea. In goal, in the sticks, I forgot to do a goal. I'm going to go from right to left. So my right back is an obvious one. I think most people will go with this guy. He's had a fantastic year, coming from Spain as well, where he just won the league, and people are kind of raising their eyebrows at it, like, what is he doing? Because the team he moved to was looked down upon as a lower team than the team he was at in Spain, and that is Kieran Trippier. Into Newcastle, doing what he's done as the captain and building on even last year. Like, I think he's had an even better season this year than last. A vital part of that squad. They're obviously Champions League now coming up for Newcastle, and he is the leader of that team. He's the captain. Eddie Howe knows him from his time at Burnley as well, so he's got that history with him and he trusts him. And I think, especially for like your fantasy team and that this year, Trippier is an absolute cert to get you points and be a consistent performer. So for me, it was an easy one for right back. He has to be my right back, Kieran Trippier. Going into the two centre backs, then I've gone with it a little bit different to what a lot of people would have gone with. I've not gone with massive names, but I've gone with people that I think deserve it and deserve the credit, but they won't get the limelight because they're not massive names and they're not like as probably glamorous as some other centre-backs, but they do their job. That shows because of where their two teams are in the table. And the first one is Lewis Dunk from Brighton. Captain of Brighton. Just got an England call-up as well, which says it all. And I think he probably could have got a call-up before this, even under Potter. But look, they've got Europa football now, guaranteed. And he's been their captain this year. Similar to the Trippier thing, you can't have all that going on in your club, whether it's positive or negative, without it reflecting on the captain as well, because he is the leader in that dressing room outside of the manager. And for me, Dunk is a very underrated centre-back. I was debating whether to put him or Colwill in, because I think Levi Colwill as well has been just as good, but being that leader, being the captain and being consistent week in, week out, Dunk for me is one of the best defenders in the league and has been since Brighton come up. So for me, Dunk gets the first spot. Second spot, similar story, a guy that's had history with Howe at Burnley. Maybe people look at him, he's definitely not a glamorous centre-back, but I think he does the job. He's aggressive when he needs to be. He's consistent. He was great at Burnley, and I think he's great. He's been great at Brentford since he's moved there, and that is Ben Mee. I didn't used to like him, but I've grown to respect him, and I do quite like him now. I think his consistency is unbelievable at Burnley, as well as going to Brentford and doing it there. He's one of the natural leaders as well. Obviously captained Burnley for a long time, so he's got that leadership quality even if he doesn't have the armband. And he's just made Brentford even stronger than they were already. He's gave them even more leadership, more experience. And I think, for me, I was more than happy to put these two guys as my centre-backs. People might go with a Diaz or a Stones or a Saliba, or Varane or Martinez, and I get it. But these two never get the credit. And I think for where their teams are in the table and the seasons they've had, and getting into things like their first Europa competition, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. So I've got to give them their respect because they deserve it. And as I said, I'm more than happy to put these two in. They deserve it. Then finishing up the back four, I'm going with a 4-3-3, by the way. Finishing up the back four, I've gone with another one that doesn't get the love. I was thinking the considerations were Ake, Zinchenko, but I think he's been a bit inconsistent. Ake, yeah, he weren't always playing, but when he came in halfway through, maybe Luke Shaw, Chilwell since he's come back. But the problem is a lot of these players haven't played the full season, or they have and they haven't been consistent enough. Whereas this guy, I think, has been phenomenal. They got him from Villarreal, another Brighton player. I watched him the other night against Man City, and he could have had about 4 assists with the quality crosses he was putting into the box. He's got work rate, he's got technique, he's got tenacity. He can score a thunderbolt. Came very close against Man City in that game as well, narrowly missing with a thunderbolt effort from distance. And you got to excuse me if I spell this wrong, and it's Estupinan. I don't know how you pronounce it or say it, but just, you know what I mean. Got him from Villarreal for, I can't remember how much they paid for him, but another one that is just severely underrated and won't get the limelight or the plaudits that he should, because he's not at a Man City or he's not at a Liverpool. Robertson's another one, but because of the season Liverpool have had, I couldn't include him because they've only been turning it around in recent months, whereas Brighton all season, they might have had the odd defeat here and there, but they've been on it from the get-go and improved on last season even more, and they're in Europa for the first time in their history. He is a quality player. He's severely underrated, Estupinan, and yeah, I liked him at Villarreal. I remember seeing him times for Villarreal, and I like the look of him. And again, huge credit to the scouting department and the recruitment department at Brighton. I think it's the best in the league, and they continuously do it. So that is the keeper and the back four. Going into midfield then, Martin Odegaard. I know Arsenal bottled the league in the end, and I know they've severely, their consistency completely evaporated and they bottled it, the title. But for about 9 months they were on it. They challenged City for the title, and this guy is just a complete baller. And yes, he's gone missing as well as others in recent months, but being the captain of this team under Arteta and what they're trying to build there, you've got to remember this guy was a wonder kid before, years back, and people thought that he fell off and his career just dwindled out. And to his full credit, he's come and revitalised his career, and we're finally seeing that player that the world was talking about when he was at Real Madrid, when they signed him as a youngster. He's one of my favourite players to watch in the league. I think he probably will, for me, would probably be definitely top 3 players of the season in all positions. Possibly top 2. I give it to Haaland in the end for overall, but for this guy and what he's done for Arsenal, leading the team, but just his technique, important goals at crucial times up until what happened, I think he's been one of their best other than Saka probably. So for me, easy one for me, Odegaard. Centre midfield, Rodri. I would have loved to put Casemiro in there for United, but I don't think he's been consistent. He's been missing with bans and injuries as well, and I don't think he's been the same player. I thought he was very good last night, saying that, but over the whole course of the season, I don't think anyone has done what Rodri's done. The consistency, he's always on the team sheet for Pep, even when he rotates a lot. He always plays. He plays as a centre-back against Brighton the other night, but he's a natural holding midfielder, but he can play in different positions. And for me, I've always preferred him to Fabinho. A lot of people preferred Fabinho to Rodri. I've always preferred Rodri. I think he's a quality player. He can score important goals at vital times. And he's just solid. He knows what he's good at. He doesn't try and overstep the mark and not he doesn't go out of doing what Pep wants him to do, basically. He's got that discipline to stay in his position, but he can also bomb forward and pop up with crucial goals as well. And for me, has to make the team. Best centre mid in the Prem for me. Left midfield, another one that's going to be a bit of a surprise to people, but I've put him in because of where this team's come from. They got a rich history, but not in recent years, not since the 80s. And this guy I've put in because they survived the league for their first promotion up in years. And this guy was a vital part of it. Their playmaker, their creator, and I think their most important player. And I think he's been consistent the whole season. And they survived. You might argue that you can't be consistent if they've only just survived relegation. But you can, because they're a brand new team coming into the league. It's not easy. We've seen what's happened to Southampton this year, who are experienced and have been in the league for years. This guy's come up, and I remember him at Wolves, and he was struggling to get in the team at Wolves and be a starter. And I think that was under Nuno at the time. But he's gone on, and I think he's improved immensely. And I think he deserves a call-up for England, to be honest, even if he doesn't start games, because he's so vital for his team, Nottingham Forest. That is Morgan Gibbs-White. I wanted to throw him in there. I think he deserves it. You could have gone with other players that are more glamorous, but he is a baller. I don't even think he's a boring footballer. He drives that team forward. The assists, goals at times. He can take a set piece, can take corners. His work rate and pressing off the ball is ridiculous. When I watched him against Arsenal the other week, he went on this run like a Messi run, like dribble, beat about 3-4 players, and unfortunately shot it straight at the keeper. But then his energy and his work rate and willingness to fight and win the ball back from that goal kick. Arsenal won the throw-in, but it was his pressure that caused them to put the ball off the pitch. And he's roaring at the crowd to get the crowd behind him and get him back into the game. And they won that. I think they were still winning at that point. So that's what I'm talking about. That sort of character you can't teach. And some of these players that you spend thousands of millions of pounds on don't have that. They might have technique and ability, but they don't have that fight in them. And he's got all of it, I think. So for me, one of the most underrated players in the league has to be in, and he's my left midfielder. Going into the front three then, on the right, I think he'll be in a lot of people's teams this season, and that is Bukayo Saka. Another one similar to Odegaard, major performer for them for 9 months until it went pear-shaped. I think he's probably been their best player other than Odegaard. It's an argument between them two for me who should get it. I think Saliba, if he'd have stayed fit for the whole season, would have been another one, but missed a lot of it through injury. He's played tons of minutes. I think he's improved year on year. I think he's getting better and better. I think he's one of the main men. Steps up, takes like penalties and stuff under pressure. The amount of goals he's provided, and I think he's just continuing to improve. I think his mindset is brilliant. He bounces back a lot from things like what's happened in the last few months for Arsenal. I think he'll bounce back again next year. Crucial player, fantastic season. Well done, Bukayo Saka. My number 9 is an obvious one. I think he'll make everyone's team. I wanted to put Tony in there despite all this match betting stuff that's been going on with him because of what he's done for Brentford this year, but I couldn't even get Tony in there ahead of this guy because of the numbers he's put up this year. Ridiculous numbers. All-time Premier League top scorer in one season. I'm going to hold my hands up and admit it. I, at the beginning of the season, predicted that Darwin Núñez would have a better season than Haaland and he would get more goals. And I thought Haaland would get about 17 at most in the league. Boy, was I wrong. And I'll hold my hands up. I will when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. I was majorly wrong. It's probably my worst take I've ever had in a football opinion. It's not that I didn't rate Haaland, but I thought it would be one of them seasons where when new players come to the league that have never played here, it takes a while for them to adjust. And I thought these sort of numbers would be difficult to even get in his second season. He might have got half of what he's got this year in his second season, and I think that would have been considered a success. But to do what he's done in his first season, I know he's with quality players, but he still has to finish the chances and make runs off the ball to get in a position to get quality balls and finish chances. His hunger as well, like, he's a world star, but that hunger, like, he will have a fight with anyone on the pitch any minute if he needs to. And sometimes it annoys me, but I like it a lot of the time with him because it shows his passion, his drive, and he just wants to score goals and achieve and achieve and achieve. and he's angry if you don't score. And that gives me old school mentality vibes of like Van Nistelrooy, Rooney, the list goes on, and he's got it in abundance. He will go down as a great for Man City and a Premier League player, I think, if he stays long enough. That's the only thing. How long is he going to be in this league? Because he's such a star that he's going to want to go to other teams, I think. The likes of a Madrid, the likes of a Juventus maybe, or just a massive, like a Bayern Munich, Barcelona. He's not, I can't see him retiring in England. So that's going to be the thing. How long is he going to stay in this league? Because he's got the talent and he's got the fundamentals. He's got it all. It's just a matter of fact of how long is he going to be in this league to be. Because if he stays long enough, his numbers and everything is just going to be ridiculous. They already are. Look at this season alone. But I got it wrong this season. Nunez flopped and Haaland prospered, more than prospered. So for me, Haaland, FWA Player of the Year as well, which I voted for him in that as well. I'm a member of that, and he got my vote. On the left, it was my one that I struggled with the most to decide, but I went with Jack Grealish. First season last year, going to City for 100 million, I really think he flopped, and I thought City had just, I didn't understand it. I think it took a couple of weeks into this season that started for him to get going. But I think since then, we're starting to see that Grealish that we saw at Villa. And I think he's improved from that Grealish that we had at Villa. He's matured. He does still get into scuffles now on the pitch, which I don't like, because I think it's a bit more petulant with him. Whereas I was saying about Haaland, how he has it. I think with Grealish, it's a bit more petulant and a bit like you get with Anthony at United. It's that sort of unnecessary petulance, like schoolboy shit, which I don't like about his game. But he's a fantastic dribbler of the ball. The amount of chances he creates for Haaland and other players, where he'll sacrifice or make space with a run, or I think his work rate's improving as well off the ball. He'll track back when needed to. I'm not a massive fan of him, but it's more so because of the stuff with that Almiron that happened, and like he's just a bit ditzy for me. He's a bit like a dumb blonde, if you know what I mean. Like, he's that personality. I'm not a fan of him as a person, but as a footballer, I do quite like him. And I think, as I said, we're getting back to that Grealish that was at Villa, and I think he's got even better and improved on that Grealish that was at Villa. So first season last year at City, I think he majorly flopped. But this year, I think after a month or so, he really kicked into gear. I think he's been vital in that team this season, kept Foden out a lot. So for me, I put him in there. The considerations, I had Martinelli. There weren't a lot for left wing for me, to be honest. I was considering Rashford. He had a good fair 2 or 3 months where he was on fire. Everything was a goal. But for me, it's the consistency again. I think Martinelli had like half a season that he was really good with the numbers, and last year. But then the consistency, I think he dropped off. And I think Saka was more the threat. The consistency was the major decider for me in that final position on the left wing. And that's why I went with Grealish. So this is my team, guys. David De Gea in goal. Trippier right back. Lewis Dunk and Ben Mee as the centre-backs. Estupiñán as my left back. Odegaard on the right. Rodri in the middle. And Gibbs-White to complete the 3 in the midfield. Saka on the right, Haaland at 9, and Grealish on the left. I'm not going to do honourable mentions outside of this, as I said, because I don't want to forget players that deserve to be in here and deserve a shout that I'll just forget. Maybe I'll do that in a separate video. If you want to see that, let me know. But I'd love to see your team of the season in the comments, guys. It's always good to see other people's and how close we are and matching up in our teams at the end of the year. Obviously, 1 game week left. I hate it when the season ends, because it feels like it's forever, or like 6 months till there's a new season, and it's not actually that long. But we got a couple months break till it kicks off again. But I just miss doing the fantasy stuff and predictions and the videos as well. So thanks for joining me this year, guys, and be sure to check into the final prediction video, which will be coming up soon as well. And I'll be dropping later today as well my recap and my player ratings for last night's game. Manchester United 4, Chelsea 1. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about your team of the season, guys, and let me know your thoughts on mine as well. Who wouldn't you have had in? Who was a must for you, and who I picked wouldn't get anywhere near your team? Catch you guys soon.